Everyone acknowledges we're living in crazy times.
When uncertainty hits any industry, it's always disruptive. Any change is hard. People don't like change. AI is here to stay, and it's going to revolutionize every single thing we do. If you try and put your head in the sand, you're going to get overtaken.
Welcome to the Energizing Leaders podcast, where we explore how leaders energize themselves and keep their people energized, because energized people create thriving businesses. I'm the founder, Andrew Dyckhoff, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome today James Gregory, CEO of System1. James, hello.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
So just to get us going, everyone acknowledges we're living in, frankly, almost crazy times. What's the one thing you're doing to keep yourself in a good, energized place?
Yeah, as you say, lots going on at the moment. We've just come back from our company conference where we had 200 people from around the world together. And my little cheat is going for a run. Get out there, get on the street, no music, reset myself and sort of work through the problems or challenges I'm facing at that point. I'm someone who needs to get my energy from people. So if I'm sometimes working from home and I don't have those people to spark me, just being able to get out, get some fresh air, reset's a great opportunity.
It would be great if you could tell us a bit about System1. What makes System1 unique, special in their space?
System1's a great business. It was born from a business called Brain Juicer. And it created this wonderful IP, which is all about understanding people's emotion and translating that into real world insights. So it's a market research company helping marketing businesses test their adverts, test their new products development, and understand by tapping into human emotion how they'll resonate in the real world.
Would you be able to share a couple of adverts that we might recognize, a couple of names that people could relate to?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming up to Christmas season in the UK, so you'll have seen maybe the new Coca-Cola advert coming out.
Yep.
It's an interesting one this year because they've used AI under it. And there's lots of question in the industry about, well, with AI coming along as a disruptor, how will it impact? I mean, but fundamentally, it's about how you feel. Yeah. So if you watch the advert, it's about how you feel. It's about tapping into the nostalgia, the soundtrack, the emotions it creates in a person that people will go, holidays are coming, Christmas is coming. I feel good and I have a nice emotional response to the brand. What we always focus on is how can you create positive human emotional response to an advert, to a new product as it's coming out, because that's what's more likely to drive action, whether that's that you vote, you buy, or you purchase.
Really interesting. And that whole kind of AI human piece, fascinating that your business continues to do what it does, even in the world of AI. So we'll touch on that more in a little while. Many people are saying to us right now that we're in a perfect storm. We've got geopolitical uncertainty, arguably 4+ dictators around the world. We've got still lingering effects post-COVID. We've got economic uncertainty, cost of living pressures on businesses and individuals, and of course AI. So how do you feel that cocktail is impacting your industry?
Yeah, it's had a massive impact. I think the biggest impact it's had is it's made businesses pause, if I'm honest. So they're all quite sure. And when uncertainty hits any industry, it's always disruptive. So we sell our services. So as I say, essentially it's market research delivered through a wonderful technology platform. So we'll help brands. So it might be an Amazon, an Adidas, a Pfizer. We'll help them test their adverts or their new products before they launch to market. But the biggest thing that uncertainty creates is that pause. So what we've seen is we've had a business that's been growing rapidly, top line growth, bottom line growth as well over the last 3 years. And then coming into this new year, as you say, and Trump's tariffs probably being the spark of a lot of it, it's created that pause. And a lot of businesses said, I don't know what the year will look like, therefore I'm not sure what I should do with my budget. So they've therefore decided to slow down, delay decisions and pause it. And what that's meant is it's meant a real kind of, I guess, a crisis of confidence in the industry. So I think our job is twofold. I think number one, we truly believe in what we do. So we want to help brands create with confidence. So what does that mean? We want them to be able to tap into those human emotional responses so they know that advert's going to resonate with the customer, so that new product will be able to sell when it launches. So we've got to make sure they're confident when they do that in the industry. But we've also got to be able to recognize that for ourselves, then actually that flying fast curve of growth might actually slow down for a while, but that's okay, as long as we focus on the right long-term growth metrics and where we want to be getting out the other side.
That feels tough to me. You inherited a business that essentially was fairly static in turnover.
Yeah.
You've come in, you describe yourself as the Chief Energy Officer, both online and your colleagues will say the same about you. You got the business really moving ahead at pace with rapid growth, and then suddenly things have got a bit sticky. So what's that doing to the energy of your people, and how are you engaging in a way to maintain that energy?
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, you're right. We've been lucky in our journey over the last few years. We've doubled our revenues over the last 3 years. We've gone from 135 to 195 people, and we are investing in the future. Like we definitely believe we've got a proposition that resonates in the market, and we can continue to grow the business. And then it's difficult when all of a sudden that top line 25% year-on-year growth we've been seeing then comes down to single digits, and people start to question, is it us? And I think that's the big question, trying to help people understand that the strategy is right, and that they need to continue to feel energized and motivated every day to do the right thing. Because if we continue to do that, we'll come out of this turbulent period in the right direction. I mean, it's one of the fundamental pieces of sort of marketing, is that the brands who invest during downturns are the ones who grow during an outturn as well. So fundamentally, we need to make sure we're applying that to ourselves. But it can feel challenging, as you say, motivating people who are, especially if they're going to be compensated through bonus or commission, for example, and all of a sudden where they've been sort of doing very well, it might be a tougher year. How do you keep them motivated? But everybody wants a business to succeed as well, and everybody wants to see that continued growth. And I think, as I mentioned last week, we were together, 190 people in person. It's incredible. For me, that's the biggest investment that we make once a year, to bring people from Australia through Sao Paulo, everybody globally into one room, to be able to bring the energy. And it lasts for months. It's really worth the investment we make.
So that's impressive, because so many businesses that we're working with are saying, well, cancel, the big events, right? Expensive air travel, accommodation, etc. So you would say, don't do that.
I mean, as I mentioned about that point, you need to invest in the future. So obviously, sensibly, you need to manage cost. I mean, I'm fortunate; I've grown up in a background in, say, retail, so I'm very clear in terms of kind of cost management and making sure you're getting value for money. But you need to make sure that you're doing the things that are going to matter most. For us, we introduced this company event 4 years ago. So this was our fourth one we've done, and the uplift it gives to people is incredible. So we actually, being a market research company, we do quarterly staff satisfaction surveys. We did one just about a few weeks ago before we're going into it, and then we've done one as we've left our conference. So while it's not yet complete, when I've looked at it, I think that where we actually saw lots of nervousness feeding into our staff satisfaction, we measure it around the emotions we use in our products. So happiness and surprise is positive versus some negative emotions. We've ticked up from, call it, say, 60% happiness through to now 80% happiness off the back of it. And that uplift you can't create virtually. I mean, we are a virtual first business, but I think there are some things you can only do in person.
So very impressive on two counts. First of all, move from 60 to 80%, and as a business, you're taking your own medicine, so to speak, and so that's very, very impressive. So thinking then perhaps a bit more specifically around the System1 context. So we're sitting in this global macroeconomic environment, which is challenging. What are the specific things, first of all, that you feel you did to create the growth, and what role did energy play in that?
Yeah, so I joined the business coming up for 5 years ago, and the reason I joined the business is because it had all of the right setup for growth. So it had an incredible history and legacy. It had some wonderful IP, which was being translated into products, not fully built, but on the journey. It had some incredible people who were bought into the mission of what we wanted to do to make a difference in the industry. But it hadn't really turned that into top line growth. So it had been around 20 to 25 million pound turnover consistently for the last 20 years. And I think for me, the first thing to do was to really get everybody aligned. Yeah. Right. Clarity of mission, clarity of strategy. And then what does that translate into for everybody today? I always love that great story around sort of the interviewer who walked into NASA and spoke to the lady on reception and said, what do you do? She said, I'm putting a man on the moon. Yeah. Now, we're not putting people on the moon, but what we're helping is our brands create with confidence. And we want every single person in the business, whether it's I work in finance, whether I work in IT, or whether I'm on the front line as our sales or consultancy teams, to know that we're here to serve our customer. Yeah. And what we do is we help them every day with their advertising and their new product development to make sure it can resonate in market. If everybody focuses on that, that's what does it. So the big thing we did was we got everybody sort of centered around a goal. We came up with a concept of, so borrowed Jim Collins' concept of the flywheel. We said, so we created in the middle, what's our big statement? So our customer, we know who they are, the world's largest brands. We know we want to help them create with confidence. That's that advertising and new product development resonating in market. And then we worked out how do we go and do it. And we built a flywheel. And around the flywheel, what everybody has is a really clear step where my job helps spin the flywheel. And when the flywheel spins, that's what allows the business to accelerate.
Brilliant. So clarity of purpose, alignment around the purpose. And have you invested in the teams? Have you done anything practical in terms of developing their skills and capability?
Yeah. We've worked really closely with you, Andrew, and the team over the last few years. So one of the first things that I did when I came in is that we've worked together prior to here as well. And I think continuing our work so that to help me be able to step back and actually look at the business through a different angle rather than being in the sort of the day-to-day grind of the role as it requires. But the first thing was also I went through personally a transition from being a peer to the CEO. So I was the COO when I joined at the same level as my executive colleagues. And one of the first things was being able to step up and to be able to take on that role as the fundamental leader of the group rather than being part of the group. And I think sort of working with yourself and some of your colleagues to be able to go on that journey to help them understand how do we as a team go on that journey. We've invested in the executive team becoming a team. I think in the first instance, when I asked people, what's your team? People would say, well, I'm head of sales, so the sales team's my team, or I'm head of consulting, the consulting team's my team. The thing that we've created is that culture where actually the executive team is your first team. Because we lead the business. We are the leaders of the business. If we're not in it together, if we're not creating that joined up effects, the group together, we can't lead all those colleagues who are going to face challenges. Challenges always tend to come up when it's between functions, when it's at those moments of friction between teams. So if we're in it together, it makes it much simpler. So that was one of the first pieces. But then I think the other things we've done is we've taken some of those like great tools out there. So the likes of the kind of Gallup Strength Finder, Zinga Folkman Extraordinary Leader. And what it's done is a couple of things. Is it gives us a common language we can use in the business so that people can understand what we're talking about, the behaviors we want to see, how people are going to be energized through their strengths that they underpin them. But also then it creates that opportunity for people to develop as well. So we have a really clear set of leadership frameworks based on these, which allow people within each role to understand what do I need to do to progress my career? How can I be the best I can be?
Brilliant. So shared language, shared frameworks, the capacity to really collectively build our energy as well as just an individual focus.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, we talked about that phrase, the chief energy officer. I guess that my job's being a catalyst for energy. So I can bring it in the moment, but if everybody else around me isn't energized, there's no chance. I learned that pretty early on in my career that you're only as good as your team. Fundamentally, I can bring an individual past and I can move the dial slightly, but I need to recruit and invest in a brilliant world-class team, make sure they're feeling energized, and make sure they've got I can remove the barriers and the blockers that are facing them on a daily basis or structurally or whatever it might be. But fundamentally, if they're feeling energized, they're able to lead their teams. And that's the thing. So we've invested in our executive team, we've invested in our senior managers in a similar program. And what it means is actually we're able to cascade that energy throughout the business and everybody can feel energized on a daily basis.
Brilliant. I love that. So many people think of energy a bit like, Tigger. I have to come in and bounce into the room and infect everyone with my energy. But what we're really talking about here is creating the conditions in which other people are energized. And I love what you say about your job as the CEO is to remove the barriers, to remove the both for the individuals and between different areas of your business. I think that's absolutely on the money, so to speak. Yeah. Now, I'm really curious. Everyone's talking about AI. Every business is having to find their way through the AI puzzle.
Yeah.
And as we know, AI is not just one thing, it's many different things. And from the outside in, looking at your business, we might have thought, well, gosh, is it going to survive beyond AI, right? Is AI going to do automatically what you guys do? So could you tell us a bit about both how you've helped your own people engage with AI, but also the strategic level? How are you adopting AI and using it to advantage?
I think that the first thing that I've kind of got my head around recently is that AI is here to stay. I mean, people talk about it being the fourth industrial revolution. And if you think about the third one being the internet, I mean, just how did I find out the venue today? I mean, fundamentally on my phone, which if I'd have thought about 10, 20 years ago would have been mind-blowing. So it's here to stay and it's going to revolutionize every single thing we do, from how we wake up in the morning to how we go to bed and every step alongside it. I think, again, I mean, looking on when I was using the internet on my phone this morning, I was reading an article where the first AI-only song has hit the #1 in the US charts. So I think it's on a particular, I think it might have been in the country billboard region. And it's an AI artist completely generated through AI. And I think it just shows that like it's out there. So AI is incredible and it's going to be there. And when you think about our industry, so that's a good example because from a creative perspective, AI is going to accelerate creativity. Yeah, so it's going to put more things on the table. It's going to remove barriers. I mean, you don't need to walk into a room to go and do a recording if you can just record it directly on your phone or however these things will be created in the future. So I think from our perspective, what that does is it creates a real shift in industry. So lots of people are looking at that. There's a lot of uncertainty around what's the role of creative agencies, of producers, of influencers, whatever they might be out there in the space. But I think that's a real opportunity because fundamentally, if you can embrace that into your understanding and you can then sort of position that around what you offer, it will make a big difference. So our whole offering, what we do is we ask humans how they feel. Yeah, that's fundamentally. So System1 comes from that whole sort of concept of System1 thinking, System2 thinking, Daniel Kahneman's thinking fast and thinking slow. Fundamentally, as humans, we respond emotionally. Yeah, we like to think we're rational humans using our System2 brain. We're not. Yeah, we're back to the dark ages. There is the System1 part of your brain that kicks in. That's what drives real decisions. 95% of our decision making is through our System1 part of our brain. And the way that we then understand that is because you respond emotionally. Yeah. So if you think about the world of advertising, new product development, it's about how are you responding emotionally to a product or to an advert. Now, whether they're created through AI, I used that Coca-Cola example earlier, or whether it's created through a human, actually doesn't matter from our business in this perspective. What we're doing then is we're then going to use a human's emotion to understand whether that is positive or negative. So I think fundamentally there's always going to be a reason for humans to be needed in that space. I think secondly, one of the things that we've also built out in our business is we test every ad that airs in the US and the UK. So we've got an incredible data set with millions and millions of emotional data points. What AI also loves is it loves big data sets to train on. So if AI is ever going to come along and be used in the space of market research to understand how humans would respond, it needs a data set like System1 has as well. So we've been building that defensive moat as well, which has actually put us in a good position to embrace AI in our offering too.
Yeah, so that's really interesting that AI is only as good as the data you pointed at. And if you've got proprietary data that you can protect, that gives you a very strong position.
Yeah,
fascinating.
You see it in bucket lists. I mean, if you Google search ad testing with AI, there will be a list of 100 new people that probably weren't there a month ago. And again, similarly, that's what's continued to happen. But the thing is, it's the same, yeah? So it's not distinctive. We talk about sort of within our offering, so fame, feeling, fluency. So one of the bits you have to have on there is a distinctive brand. If you look and feel the same as everybody else, why would somebody use you? Why would they use your business? You need to be able to have that distinctive perspective, and it needs to link to how your brand is. And I think from our perspective, that ability to really tap into human emotion, either because AI has been trained on human emotions and can accelerate what that is, or because we're still going to be using humans in that space, will really set us up for success.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about how AI has impacted your own people. Many people are finding it busy lives, 120% utilization. Oh my goodness, I've got to learn this AI thing on top. And I have to say that in many cases, it's anything but energizing. So how's your experience at System1 been? And what have you done to help that process?
Sure. I mean, any change is hard. I mean, fundamentally, people don't like change. People love the concept of change. They don't like it happening to themselves. So AI feels exactly the same. We've been trying to we just actually run a pilot internally in terms of like how we can use AI to help accelerate kind of like the efficiency and effectiveness of the business. And what we did is we took one person from each department, or sorry, two people from each department, who could actually be the testers of it and sort of try and understand how can this be positive for me in my life? How can it make my life better? And how could it for the rest of our departments? When we were together in person last week, what we then actually ran was we ran a workshop where we had those people sort of sit down in the various groups and say, over the last 12 weeks, I've been trained to understand how to use AI, whether that be ChatGPT, whether it's Claude, whatever the tool you might be using. And we then have taken it out to people. And what's incredible is we found the people who people want help with the stuff that they don't find inspiring, the things that sap their energy. So if you think about it, so if I'm in finance and I'm processing invoices for 5 hours a day, if there's a way to turn that down to 1 hour a day so I can then spend those extra 4 hours doing something that's much more energizing to me, that's great. Yeah. So I think people then get scared to say, well, does that mean I don't have a job, etc. I think fundamentally, like, it just means you can focus on creating better outcomes. It doesn't mean you need fewer people necessarily. It just means you can create a better outcome off the back of it. So what we've been trying to do, therefore, is use that AI, that piece of inspiration, test and learning with a few people who can then become the champions in the business. But then we're now going to look at how we can then roll it out wider across the business from last week onwards.
And have you noticed in those champions that, I don't know whether you chose them or they were volunteered or a bit of both, but have you noticed there's a shift in thinking around AI for them?
Oh, incredibly, yeah. I mean, so they volunteered. I went through the program as well myself. And it's really interesting because, to your point, sometimes it feels like an extra task when you've got a busy week, and how do you create the extra hour a week plus a bit of homework that we were doing to go learn it. But fundamentally, I mean, I've already seen bits of my life now that are more effective. So even within the space of the last 12 weeks now, I am more effective in things that I do because I've worked out what simple tasks do I not need to do that I can get AI to do for me. Right. Now, again, the challenge with it, and as I'm learning, is that it isn't always right first time. You need to still check it, etc. But I think as you build that relationship with AI and you work out the right tools for the right tasks as well, because it's not one size fits all, you can then quite quickly be able to move forward into a place where actually I can create the time to actually add the most value. I mean, if my job is that catalyst for change, I want to spend as much time doing that as possible. There's a whole heap of admin that comes with the role. So if I can remove as much of that as possible, it means I can focus on the things that are going to add the most value to the business.
Well, that's very good news for those people that are worried. We should take a page out of your notebook and actually step in. And I really like what you say. AI is here to stay. Look for the positive. Let's look for the advantage it will give us.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, really. It's if you try and put your head in the sand, you're going to get overtaken. Yeah. So I think it's an opportunity to embrace it. I still feel my brother is a few years younger than me, and I always felt when the internet came out, we were almost in two generations, where he was an internet native and I was an internet user. And I think actually, if you look at this world of AI, it's going to transform everything we do. So learn it now. Just use it. Use it for fun. Use it for your holiday planning. Use it to work out what you want to do in the weekend. And then all of a sudden, you'll start to understand how you can interact with it. And then you can work out how you can apply it in a much more sophisticated way at later points.
So I'd like James to maybe invite you to some more personal reflections about your personal journey. As a leader, what would you say were the really defining moments for you?
I think there's always many in here, and it's always hard to boil it down to just one or two, but a couple that stand out for me. I started my career in consulting, and after 7 years, I then went to Tesco. And I think in Tesco, I had an incredible set of leaders, mentors, managers who I worked for. And that was an incredible piece for me. But one of the big kind of eye-openers at that point was moving from an industry where in consulting, where everybody is very driven and motivated to create a good outcome, whether it's for themselves and their career, whether it's around their financial, whether it's whatever it would be. And then I went into a world where there were lots of people who had a job, and for them it was a job and they were comfortable in their job. They didn't want to progress to the next 2-3 levels. And I always remember when I first took on a team lead role at Tesco, in my team as a 20-something-year-old, I had someone who was double my age and had knew way more than I would ever know about Tesco and how it worked. And they were quite comfortable in their role. And the challenge I had was to try and establish, how can I help that person? Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, how can I help inspire them to do the best that they want to do and then they can do in that space? And I think that was a real eye-opener to understand sort of actually what's the role of a leader and how can you operate as a leader? It's not just necessarily defined by age or experience. It's defined by how you can energize a team around you. And I think that was one of those moments that's probably stuck with me forever. And I think you also learn, those great opportunities, you also learn from things that don't work out so well as well, don't you? Fundamentally, they're probably the biggest life lessons you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were the really big challenges or faux pas that you learned from, that you feel you can disclose?
Yeah, and I get things wrong every day. We all get things wrong every day. Fundamentally we do. And I think that the biggest opportunity we have is to make sure we can then reflect on it and actually try not to do it again. We have our traits we'll fall into that will happen, but if we can make sure that the big things we're learning from and we're taking them forwards. I think from a personal perspective, one of them was understanding around what drives my energy. So after I left Tesco, I went into a role And I think the role that I was sort of sold through the interview process versus the role I came into were quite different. And I think understanding, so I felt like at that time, I felt like I was I felt like I was a failure because I wasn't succeeding, and I'd had a great career and I'd always got promoted and succeeded in what I'd done. And all of a sudden I was in a space where what I wanted to do to add value wasn't seen as adding value to the business.
Yeah.
And that was a real challenge for me. And I think actually it took a long time. So the couple of things. One was recognizing the time when I'd given it sort of a year or so and recognizing actually was the time to move on, because the role wasn't suited to my skill set. It wasn't how I was going to really add value to the business and get my energy myself. So understanding that and being able to take the decision to move on and getting over the fact that that might felt like a failure to me, but actually was something that I could move on from. And then I think that was probably the biggest learning I've had in terms of what do I need to succeed and what do I need to feel energized myself. And what I've learned from that is very much a few things. So number one, for example, I really thrive on autonomy. So having a role where I'm able to give the autonomy to be able to go and drive success across a business, across a project, whatever it might be, is really important. And I think secondly, interaction with people. I think I mentioned it before. So I get my energy from being with people, sort of in the true extrovert sense that there is there. And I think I worked in a role in that previous one where I was a relatively individual contributor. And for me, that was never really going to get the best out of me. For me, it's about being in a team, getting the energy, the different skill sets the team bring, and helping sort of orchestrate or coordinate that team in the best way possible.
So you're a hugely inspiring leader. Who are the leaders, historic, current or otherwise, that inspire you?
Yeah, I think lots of people always have these big famous ones. And I guess for me, they tend to be people who are closer to home. So, I mean, two leaders that I was thinking about sort of in preparation for the conversation today were people that I worked with back at Tesco. So my first boss was a lady called Shiri Mosenson. She's currently the Chief Product Officer at Ocado. And when I joined the team, the thing that she said to me was, she said, "Look, I recognize your potential. Like, I'm going to treat you as my peer. Yeah, let's work out how do we work together on this and go on this journey together, because we should be doing that. So although you work for me at the moment, like I can see you're going to have a career that will help grow." And she created the environment for me to thrive and succeed, which was absolutely incredible. She understood what motivated me quite quickly and was able to really get me to be my best. And by default, I was doing the best for her, so which helped her sort of like obviously develop as she went through. And secondly, also, I mean, at Tesco, there's a chap called Rich Lamb who had been in the business and still works for Tesco, so Tesco Life, but joined as a graduate and sort of been working through the business there. And I think for me, his ability to be like truly professional, truly leading in a style that I looked up to and admired. He never would sort of talk behind people's back. Like he walks the walk. He really talked the talk and walked the walk. And he led in a true leadership manner. And I think I was just, if I could be a bit of that every day, then that would mean I'm doing a good job.
So looking back now, what would you say to your younger self? What's the one bit of advice you would give your younger self?
I think the biggest thing, so I've been CEO for 3 years, and the biggest thing that I always come back to is it's all on you. Yeah, it's all on me. It's all on the CEO. And moving from a world where I've been in a team and I've had my peers, or I've always had a boss. So if there's that really difficult decision, I can go, oh, I need a bit of help with this one. And I think actually sort of recognizing the fact that it sort of sits on my shoulders, building a network of people who can become your trusted advisors, who you can have those conversations with, is incredibly important. I mean, for me, Andrew, I'll count you as one of those for me.
Thank you.
But there are other people, say my wife, for example. I mean, bless her, she knows more about the business than she ever thought she would when she married me. Other people within the business, within my chair, Rupert Howell, I have a great relationship with him where I'm able to go for kind of like for steer and advice. And I think being able to create those safe spaces where you can go and have a conversation when you can be your vulnerable self, and you can actually have a true sort of moment of, how do I go? Is this okay? And that real reflective moment, so that then when you come back out and, as you say, like when I walk into the office, people look and they'll see, oh, is he positive today? Is his head up, or is it a bit hard and are you feeling down? Like you are always on show as a CEO. So I think creating those safe spaces and that trusted advisor network is really, really invaluable, so you don't have it all on your own shoulders.
Brilliant, thank you, great advice. So we're coming to the end of our time together, and we're asking every leader who comes on the podcast, what is the one habit or ritual that you would recommend as a leader who energizes others?
Understanding what energizes you and making sure you have enough time to do it. So I mentioned earlier, for example, for me, one of the ways I do that is for going for a run. So I never have any issue during a workday taking a half hour break to go out for a run, to reset, to find my energy wherever it becomes. And I think people sometimes feel like, oh, but I've got to clock in my hours or whatever it be. It's like, no. Make sure you've got the right levels of energy so you can turn up and be the best every time you can. And then the second thing for me personally as well is all about my family. I mean, I know I get my most levels of energy from my 3 young children, from my wife, and being able to kind of build into my calendar the dinners, the breakfast, the drop-off at schools. I can't do it every day, but if I can do it once a week, it means that I've got that kind of nice, warm feeling inside that actually allows me to feel like I'm doing the right thing. Because why do I do this? I mean, I do this because I want my family to be proud. I mean, that's what motivates me. So if I've got enough time with them to kind of see that and to understand that, then that's what really drives me.
So as Chief Energy Officer, what's the most important thing that you do on a regular basis to, as it were, live up to the name, to genuinely be the Chief Energizing Officer?
Yeah. So I think I've understood that, so we're a relatively virtual business first, and I think so therefore being able to make sure that I can create the energy in my executive team and essentially in the senior manager team is the most important thing I can do. I always think my job is almost like being a chief HR officer in a way, like it's removing those blockers. It's making sure that they've got the ability to succeed in what they want to do, that their teams are set up. So I think sort of making sure that I can enable the energy in the team and create that systemic energy throughout the business is fundamentally what I can do.
Brilliant. Well, James, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for giving us your time and so many really wise and inspiring tips. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew.